Just because you sleep with someone, wake up with them, and live with them, don't take it for granted that it's already a relationship.
That starts to wear down the bond, doesn't it?
It's not the idea that infidelity happens because they go for the actor. No, that's not what happens. It's someone who looked at you and said, "You look beautiful." I asked, who's to blame? The one who didn't say anything or the one who didn't ask? It's all about that.
Yes.
Couples who fight are precisely the ones who don't break up because they get involved. Why do they think that just by getting married and having a beautiful wedding and looking great as newlyweds, everything is going to work out?
I'm so happy about today's episode because I have back with me someone who's now a friend of mine and has given. And today, she's here to help us understand why sometimes the person we say we love is the one we can hurt the most, and vice versa. Why does it seem like we end up with our worst enemy? And what can we do so that this dynamic and this bond, instead of wearing down every day, can flourish? Welcome back to Conquista tu Mundo. How are you?
Very well, and happy to be here again.
Me too. I think we already did a podcast before this one. We talked about everything there.
There's nothing left.
Conquista, there's nothing left to talk about. Thank you for being here.
No, you and I always have interesting things to talk about. That's a fact.
That's true. Welcome to Carajillo de Mazarik, where we're recording this episode. And today I want, as I already said in the introduction, to unravel some things that aren't talked about much on social media, which, however, carry a lot of weight in relationships. But to get into that, the first question I would ask you, just openly, is, can you love someone and still be hurting them every day without really realizing it?
Yes. It's not an excuse. Like, well, we're only human. What happens is that love is not enough for a relationship to work. Not all the frogs in the world are from Karangamas. Not all love is excessive. There are other things that give a relationship quality and make it sustainable over time. And if you're not aware of those things, well, time goes by, relationships go by, and you miss out on them.
And what kind of things would those be, Mishuli, to start getting into that?
For example, a very simple one, because I think life is about understanding that things are simple, but they do take work. They have their complexity. Curiosity. I feel like we've lost curiosity in general in this world we live in, but also lost curiosity about who the other person is. I mean, you married a person who changes their tastes, interests, weight, and so many other things. And so we stop being curious, like we stay stuck on the person we first met. And human beings change at least every 5 years. But sometimes you don't make a fruit fountain, the carajillo, and you say, let's talk. Who are you today?
No?
No. But then you don't have to be so formal with me either. But if you're curious about who the other person is, you're going to notice changes. Hey, suddenly they might start working out. I'm straightforward. I don't back down. You keep doing everything. Why might they start working out? You see him more serious, right? A bit more reserved. Maybe he's having some trouble at work. Many times we don't share what we're going through because, well, why bring it into the relationship? Why should I tell them? Is it going to get worse? Will it cause problems? That's a mistake.
And also, because we don't find the right moment, right? We think people don't care. And many times, even our partners or friends don't genuinely ask us, hey, how are you? What's going on in your life? So tell me, are you still into it? Do you still like it? What are you up to? I see you're like this. Are you okay? Is there something I can help you with? And so we just keep going on autopilot, right?
And, I took away an important lesson yesterday at a lunch with some friends. I don't see that often. Yes, but we get along really well. And then one of them started by saying, hey, let's catch up on where each of us is at. So they asked me first, and I said, where am I? I mean, I really asked myself, what would I answer? I thought it was really. Look, there are many ways to do it. But what you need to have beforehand to get to know someone else is curiosity.
Of course. And what does that curiosity look like in practice?
Exactly. Exactly. By being curious, excuse the expression, about the person you're facing,
by asking them.
ask them. It's kind of strange. Ask them, don't you see anything strange? Yesterday, when they asked me that question, I imagined my own relationship issues. That even though I work with a couple who go out, share some tacos, crave them for 3 weeks, and then sit down and each one is on their phone.
Yes.
Why don't you take the opportunity to ask them, hey, if someone asked you who you are today, what would you say? How are you? Just because you sleep next to the person and wake up with the person and live with the person, don't take it for granted that it's already a perfect relationship.
Of course. And you're talking about the changes that have happened. But many people also don't know much about the person's history, their achievements, the things they're passionate about. It's like they fall in love, talk about two or three things, and get married.
Exactly.
And as if they already knew each other.
And then you're in a meeting and something from the past comes up. And you turn and say, hey, I never knew about this.
Uh-huh.
Why don't I know about it?
Yep.
And then you confront him. Here's a second thing. You go, why did you never tell me? Look, it's not about blaming. I ask him, who's to blame? The one who didn't say anything or the one who didn't ask? It's all about that.
No.
Again, I go back to the topic of curiosity. Who are you living with? What do they like most? What are they passionate about? What don't they like anymore?
What are their fears?
What are you afraid of? Maybe something you weren't afraid of. For example, fears change over time.
Of course.
I would put all of that under curiosity.
And from there, well, it's beautiful because you see the person as they are and not the idea you have in your mind, which might already be outdated or maybe isn't as real as you think. And that way, you can empathize, I imagine, right? Would you say empathy is also an important element?
Empathy, which is a word that's kind of overused, isn't just sitting in front of someone wanting to listen. For me, empathy is a step above. Empathy is when your partner is telling you everything and you step out of yourself and put yourself in their shoes, listening to what they're telling you from their perspective. Because empathy is often confused with just listening, giving your opinion, and offering advice. Many times, the other person just wants to talk to us, and that's why couples stop sharing things. I already know what they're going to say to me. I'm going to go and tell him that I had an exhausting day, that the kid fell down, and that his dad is going to say, why didn't the teacher take him? Why didn't you take your helper? Why didn't your mom go with you? No, 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 thank you. That already happened. What I want to tell you is just that I was really tired, that I had a really tough afternoon, and I just want to share it with you because you're my partner. So I even recommend an exercise at night where each of you spends 10 minutes talking about your day. Can't give advice, give your opinion, just listen. So the other person feels like they don't have a safe space. Yeah, true empathy.
Okay.
Empathy is not just listening from across from them like you're the wise one,
No, exactly.
telling them where they made a mistake.
Totally agree. That's a very common mistake we hear, and we want to solve it for the other person. And this, in fact, I learned from you, which is to listen and then ask, like, confirm and say, that's nice. Do you want my opinion or do you want something else? Do you want me to help you with something or do you just want me to listen to you?
But look, more than that. Yes, let's go back to the case of this overwhelmed woman. If you really step out of your place and put yourself in her shoes, what you would answer is no. Just listening to you. I already feel tired too.
Yes, yes, yes.
It's perfect because I'm on your shoulders.
Yes, something that helps me a lot, and I'll share it with you as a free tip, is that I'm very imaginative. I have a very visual mind. So when someone tells me something, first I really like to listen. I'm very curious, like you said. And when they tell me stories, for example, my wife or my mom or whoever, even if it's just that they went to the supermarket or really important things about their work, I really live the story in my mind. Like I try to see it, but it comes naturally to me. I'm not going to say that I practiced it, but I suggest you try to see the story in your mind. Eto, and then that's going to put you in a kind of movie in your mind where you'll want to know more because there are things you'll want to fill in, like, hey, how was this? And what is this? And so on. And in the end, like you said, you'll say, wow, I do know how you experienced it, or at least I have an idea, right? So empathy is not just listening, it's putting yourself in someone else's shoes and mind.
That's why people always say put yourself in someone else's shoes. What I say is, and look, that's something I learned as a therapist. Yeah. One of the most important things about being a therapist is listening to others from their own perspective, not from your own reality. And that's the beautiful thing about our work because I step out of my own reality when I'm in someone else's world. You know, it's kind of therapeutic. I forget about my life because it's about other people's lives.
Of course.
It's nice when people say, and at the end of the day, aren't you exhausted? No, I'm living in other happy lives. That's me.
Uh-huh.
The other way around. Then at night, it's my life again. Now it's my turn to connect with people. So you have to put yourself in someone else's shoes. It's something very important that you have to do. And I think these tools aren't just for a certain time or moment. It's a toolkit
Yes.
to live as a couple and not in a used one. I don't like it.
I agree. There will probably be more, you'll tell me. But these two, if they are not applied, how can they harm the relationship and also the person in front of you?
The first is that if you're not curious about the other person's life and they're not curious about yours, each of you will grow in your own way and you'll end up being perfect roommates, strangers. And that's when the relationship is at risk if someone else more curious comes along. Is it your turn?
Yes.
Because human beings need to feel seen. It's a need we can't see. Part of what happens with the topic of infidelity, and a lot of research has been done because people were very curious, is that it's not about infidelity being that they leave with someone else. No, no, no. That's not what happens. It's someone who looked at you and said, "You look beautiful."
Someone who listened to you, who validated you.
Exactly. So that relationship is at risk. Yes, that either of them might meet someone who asks them those curious questions and makes them say, "Wow,
Course.
he cared."
Of course. And even though, sorry to interrupt you, Julie, but infidelity can't be justified. A very important symptom because you see, being in a relationship is about that. Being there for each other and seeing yourself through the other person's eyes and listening to yourself through the other person's ears. It's like a mirror that can reflect not only your wounds, but also your good qualities, the things you've experienced, your nostalgia is your travel companion, like you said. And if that travel companion, that co-pilot, doesn't want to be curious about your life, your changes, your pain, your joys, and suddenly, a very cliche case, you see that your coworker does, you'll almost unconsciously get attached. No? Or well, you can somatize it in many ways. But the reality is that, as Julie rightly says, it's a basic human need to feel accepted, to feel heard, to feel seen, to feel like you belong in this case, in this relationship.
Exactly. And the same thing happens with empathy. If I feel that every time I share, let's see, because intimacy isn't just in bed, emotional intimacy is even more important. Sorry, well, just as important. We're not going to rank them. But how can there be intimacy if I never feel like my partner asks about me or is interested in what's going on with me before telling me what I did wrong or what I should do, right? What's going on with me? I start to close up. I start talking about personal stuff with my colleagues, with my friends, with my mom. And inside the relationship, I don't, because I know that every time I tell him, he's going to explain to me why I did it wrong and how I could have done it different. He's not going to listen to me.
Yes.
And that's a misconception we have about intimacy because that's what true intimacy is.
Okay.
And then intimacy starts to fade, and one thing leads to another. If you lose emotional intimacy, you're automatically going to lose it.
Because there's a saying that goes, emotional connection is to the brain and the emotional system what sex is to the body. So if there's not one,
The other one fades away, and then couples grow apart. But the problem is that I don't know how to fight. We have this misconception. Hey, that couple broke up, but they never fought. No, 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 no. The couples who fight are precisely the ones who don't break up because they get involved. No, no, no. The problem is this: there's situations or details or subtle things
yes,
that over time get lost.
Shuli, for example, curiosity and empathy, not only about the person's general life, but also about what hurts them. For example, I say to you as my partner, let's try to put it in the best way possible. Sometimes it may not come out in the best way because it's a reaction, but never offensively or aggressively. Hey, it's just that when you do that, it bothers me or it hurts me or it pains me. How would that look here? Because many times it's not just about everyday things. It's about the things you know are wearing down the relationship, and the other person starts to get defensive and then to justify themselves. And then they don't empathize with your pain or they minimize it, right? So how can we apply that here?
Let's see. I think it's important there that you can talk about what's happening between you, which means rather than getting into an argument, you move into the space of talking about the dynamic between you. And for that, you need to be a very self aware person. A lot of emotional awareness to be able to give something back. Look, it's just that I feel this way, and this happens in a series.
Mhm.
No, not fighting on the battlefield, but rising to a higher level. It's like you managed to see the scene from the rooftop, and here you are with your partner. What's going on with you?
Like a narrator.
Like a narrator. It's like you're splitting in two. I mean, Dharma's body separates, just imagine, and from above you could see yourself. In that scene, what do I say to her?
Okay. And then you could say something like, when this happens, or when you say this, I feel a certain way, or this happens to me.
Emotion, reflecting emotion, is an extraordinary tool that has two difficulties. First, we don't know how to identify our emotions. That's a big problem.
Yes.
But if we knew how to define them, which, by the way, is something we need to learn, it would be a great tool. Because let's see, what happens to me when you try to fix me? I mean, why is it that every time I talk, you try to fix me? I get sad, but it's not really sad. I get nostalgic. I get angry.
Mhm.
I feel dismissed. You have to name the emotion. And so when you talk about how you feel and you name an emotion, you're not judging the other person. So the other person will feel more at peace
Okay. In the best case scenario.
at best. But it should, because emotions aren't morally good or bad. If I tell you today I'm feeling a bit sad. No, don't be sad. No. Well, of course, I'm feeling sad, but I can be sad for a while. It's okay. You can't tell the other person, no, no, no. You can't say that because it is.
Of course.
It's an emotion.
Of course. And minimizing it or invalidating it hurts more.
It hurts more because no, 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 don't be sad. Life is beautiful and all that, but I don't have a family. What happened to me?
That's when curiosity comes in. Okay. This
Todas se van entrelazando
of course.
because you're sad. Because if all you're trying to tell me is don't be sad, look, the sun came out. Life is beautiful. I'll give you a carajillo. No, 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 no. Hold on. All of that is very nice. But that hard thing happened to me this morning.
Of course.
So that's reality.
Of course. But what happens when you say, I feel sad, or this thing you said or did or whatever hurt me? It hurt me. And the other person takes it as that judgment you mentioned and starts to defend themselves, disconnect, justify, and minimize and invalidate. And then the other person starts to defend themselves from the defense, and it turns into chaos.
You'll never know. So I started therapy because it already became.
But there should have been empathy and curiosity, which are the first two tools we've noticed are extremely valuable.
Wouldn't have happened.
It wouldn't have happened. That would have been like a warning sign for the other person to say, okay, let's get curious. Hey, my love, why did you feel this way? Or how did I do it? Or whatever, and empathize with the narrative.
Wouldn't have. We're curious about many things, but if you notice, we're not very curious about our family
Could it be because? Why is that?
because we take it for granted that since we live together and we're always together, we already know everything and we won't have to ask so much. But with this friend I went out to eat with whom I haven't seen in 3 months, well, I do have to be proud because I haven't seen her. I haven't seen her stop me either.
Of course, I haven't seen it. And that's why a lot of people, even in a relationship, still feel very lonely. Because they don't feel seen, heard, or valued. And for example, when you constantly find that the other person, you try to tell them something and they're not curious. And then you just hit a wall. Or you try to express what hurt you and the other person gets defensive and you start to shut down. That starts to wear down the relationship, right?
It wears it down and creates distance.
You do things at the same time.
Because then it's not just about who I feel like being with, if it's going to work out.
Yes.
And then you say, yes, I love having dinner with them. They're very handsome, very beautiful. I love going to the movies. I love watching a good series. But we stopped sharing this beautiful intimacy.
That happens a lot. What you just said about couples in front of the TV watching a show, or at the movies, or with friends, or traveling, but damn, distracted by everything, not looking at each other. And there is a lot. And I think I am a person who values emotional connection above everything else. Thank you. Not everyone appreciates that. They value the kind of marriage that I call functional. Like, well, she takes care of the kids, takes care of the home, which is also very valuable, but we don't connect at all. No, I prefer my house to be a mess, but to have great conversations with my wife, or a friendship.
Let me say, I think what you're saying is very important. We're focusing our attention on the wrong things, as if having a nice house means having a good relationship. Like, I have a clean truck, the kids, nice truck. I think what's happening is risky. And my conclusion is that's why the world of the couple has such a big gap, because culture doesn't help either. The social part, where you put your attention, if I don't build the wall. And these subtle things are rarely talked about.
Yes. And when it is talked about, since nobody ever taught us these skills, well, as you said, it's talked about from a place of blame. The other person isn't curious, doesn't empathize. You get angry, make a mess, and that's the usual pattern. So you end up with two closed-off people relating to each other mostly through their defense mechanism. And like you said, maybe not even leaving their house because it's like, I'm comfortable, I have my wallet here, or I have someone to cook for me here. And that's horrible.
It's horrible. Because when I hear that, I think if we really only have one life, how sad is that? I mean, how sad is it that you don't share your life as a couple with a partner you can truly be free with, where you feel that person is there for you?
And I would ask you, is that something we should see from the start in dating, or can it be built? Because many times it's a matter of temperament, of
Look, I do believe that there are temperaments, that there are styles, all of that. But I feel like you can always find a way to build it. But you have to be aware of it.
and a lot of willpower.
A lot of willpower, because willpower is what makes change hard.
Yes.
But you have to be careful, because look, if we don't do all these things you're doing, if we're not careful, you start losing admiration for the other person, and you will no matter what.
Yes.
Admiration is the prelude to. I mean, let me ask you, could you fall in love with someone you don't admire? Just think about it for a second. And so, in order for me to keep admiring the other person, I have to know who you are.
And when you say admire, what do you mean by that in terms of traits? Because a lot of people associate admiration with success. How can we break that down?
What would matter to me in a partner? For example, nothing to do with what it is. I mean, I care that a partner is clean. That's what matters to me. What do you care about in a partner, starting from the most subtle?
Yes.
And I admire him. I don't know. I'm just speaking for myself. I admire my partner a lot. We'll be celebrating 42 years together. Even though he understood that I was a woman who really valued my family life, but that achieving professional fulfillment was very important to me. And you have no idea how much I admire that he never, and I mean never, gets upset when I tell him, sorry, I can't have dinner with you because I'm rushing off to record with John. Oh, that's great. Say hi to him for me. Enjoy. I know you love it. I mean, he gets me, but he knows he has a happy person by his side.
Of course.
See,
Of course.
so I admire him for that, because he's a mature person. Mature, someone who knows how to be alone. For example, for me, it's very important that if I were married to a man who doesn't know how to be alone, I couldn't be with him.
No doubt.
Always. I see it with friends, with colleagues.
Yes, their children are more important to them than their wives.
I'm not to this conference because I already asked for another one like this in assignments. No, I can't do it.
They don't give them permission.
Well, yes, and that they can't because they've already done a lot. Now it's someone else's turn. And for me, it's the opposite when I feel like I've already taken on too much on this side and I mention it. Oh, guess what? That's the thing. But I'm not going to go because now that's it. Go. You're going to regret it. I admire that she's like that. But do you know why he's like that? Because he's a very rich man. He's just a man who's rich on the inside, who has a very rich life and likes to read. But he also has his national yoga programs that are so interesting. It could be that
Of course, because he doesn't need you, but he loves being with you. So if you have your own life, I admire that.
Miro,
He's fine.
I admire that in a person. Of course, it's not about success. It's about the subtle things. So if you married someone very attractive and you admire them because they're successful, because they have money, because they're very good looking, all those things can go away.
And besides, you're not admiring the person for who they are.
Admiration is for who you are because all of that goes away. And then suddenly, it's like I feel that we don't love each other anymore. And I go back to the source of love. And the source of love and the initial admiration is wrong. We have to admire a person for something more personal, for their generosity, for their nobility, because those things don't go away. If someone is generous, whether they have a lot or not,
Yes.
a person is noble. Nobility is something beautiful, and you are noble at your core. It has nothing to do with your success, with what you have or don't have. So it's very important today for everyone who is listening to us and has a partner to sit down for a minute and think about what they admire about their partner or why they admire them.
What would happen if, after a certain amount of time, you see that couples change, or many start out in the rush of infatuation and discover that they don't have that admiration? Is that something they're not seeing, or is it something that really might not be there?
It's something that might not be there. And for me, it's the number one predictor of the rest.
Yeah?
Yes, because it's impossible for me to love the inner self. And then the love starts to go down, down, down. Then there's intolerance. Then all kinds of ghosts creep in. And it's very hard to.
Okay.
How do I do it in a therapy session? To get someone to admire someone they don't admire.
Of course. And so here I would recap a little bit. The topic of curiosity, the topic of empathy, and the topic of becoming an admirable person or connecting with your admirable self. Because you are already kind, you are already someone who can be alone, you are already loving, you are already many things. But probably because of routine or your labels, and you only believe that you are the profession you have, and in many ways you shut yourself down. But if you reconnect with your own individual fulfillment, it's easier for the other person to see it. And if they don't, well, that's their job. But for you to feel so rich inside, as you say, that you can be admirable.
Exactly. I believe that a person who is inwardly rich, who is fulfilled, is worthy of being admired.
Of course.
So it's something both sides have to work on.
Yes, totally, totally.
But above all, the person has to do it through their own self-belief. And today I would like to be someone admirable. What do I have inside?
Besides these three that we're looking at, I know there are many more, and that's what you and I usually talk about. But what other one would you like to bring to the table today, Shuli, among these tools or skills that we should develop to nurture the bond instead of hurting it?
I think one that's very important is knowing how to make.
Extremely important.
By knowing how to repair, I mean, there's a misunderstanding and then forgiveness. Because someone tells us, our partner tells us, or hey, this thing about you bothered me, but okay, forgive me, right? That's it.
As if that ended it.
Okay, sorry. What's with the sorry, just forgive me? No. For me, forgiveness has a pre-step. In order for me to forgive, I need to feel your self awareness.
100% empathy,
Curiosity, empathy, and in another area.
I love it.
But we don't do it, We don't do it. Yeah. Because, how do you interpret the other person? Or do you want to start again? Again?
Yes, like an evasion.
Everything all over again. Yeah.
Yes.
Forgiving. You don't have that ability to forgive. But when I see you like that, I feel like you're not taking my side. Forgiveness is the ability for you to repair, for you to be able to help heal the other person's wounds. We don't do it. Yes, we don't do it. And I don't have to say it.
If you truly love someone, no.
Exactly. It's being able to say, you know what, forgive me, because I did hurt you. I hurt you. I didn't just make you feel bad. And you know what? I realize that now. And I'm going to be much more careful next time. Please forgive me because I recognize how I hurt you and where I failed you. And you know what happens to the other person? They no longer need forgiveness. What we human beings want is not the word sorry. It's to feel that we're not crazy. It's to feel that what I experienced is real.
Again,
Validation of your pain.
of course, it's again about feeling seen, heard, and loved. And when you immediately say, well, okay, I'm sorry you didn't take the time to be curious, to be empathetic, and as you said, to embrace or tend to the other person's wound and be responsible for your part in the matter. Okay, maybe the other person intensifies it because of their own wound, because they're very sensitive, because they distorted it, whatever the reason. But there's something that you touched, and that's what you have to look at afterwards. Let's see.
And look, we all make mistakes.
Of course.
Romans, and sometimes we're going to hurt others without meaning to. I say without meaning to because at the time you weren't aware. But then that's what it means. Because look, I did it unintentionally. How much so? Well, unintentionally, it's not always about intending to do it. But then the other person doesn't feel validated. It's like, and it's this anger of telling the other person, don't just say sorry, but acknowledge the crying I went through. That pain, that day, I deserved it. I mean, it was real. I have the right to, And that's what they want. It's not the word forgiveness.
Of course, and many times that's where it comes into. Or the one who wants to immediately ask for forgiveness just to avoid the conversation. Or the one who takes that complaint or that need or that pain and starts with their own and starts bringing things up. And you didn't do this for me either, and this and that, and all sorts of things. Never hugs, never empathizes, never.
Many times in all relationships with parents, with everyone, many times a child wants to be able to tell their parent because they recognize throughout their life how hard it was and how much their father hurt them. And they don't want to talk to their dad and have him say, okay, forgive me. I did what I could with the tools I had, and that's what I was able to do. No, that doesn't work for you as a child. You wanted for me to tell you I couldn't see it before, but now I can see it from your perspective. Yes.
I see it, and I'm really sorry.
I hug you and I'm really sorry. You don't need anything else. That's where it healed. It's so easy to heal when I stop. Yes, people send me to heal. It shouldn't have to be for me.
No, and there I would just add to what you said. Correct me or confirm. Put true love, true intention, because when the words come out automatically, like, yeah, forgive me, I'm really sorry, whatever, the other person knows it's not true. The other person knows that you're not connected to yourself or to them, and they know it. And they might even get more anxious or whatever, and the conversation won't move forward. On the other hand, when you connect to that empathy we talked about, you say, I see you, I'm sorry, I truly feel what you felt, and forgive me, or let's see what we can do about it.
And you heal.
And you heal.
It's just that people talk about healing as if it were, as if healing is just like how you imagine it in an appointment. Yes.
Yes.
Healing is the culmination of a process that is much simpler than we think. Because if you manage to do this part of true forgiveness and making amends very quickly, the other person very quickly feels, that's all I wanted. Okay, it's over now. The only thing I wanted was for you to acknowledge that pain I felt. I have the right to have felt it. I'm not crazy.
Of course. And that's where I tell you, Shuli, especially in the first years of a relationship or marriage, well, these back and forths, if you ask me. Well, they're very constant, and there will be a lot of buttons you push along the way. You learn what hurts the other person, and you too, from the person you're with. And this dynamic is going to be very constant. And you can't just say, oh, are you constantly telling me what hurts you? Or you're constantly telling me that you're fed up, that you're tired, that you've had enough. It's like people think that getting into a relationship and having these kinds of conversations means that everything is wrong without realizing that not having them wears down the bond.
Exactly. This is a misunderstanding. And especially in the first years, you have to do more rather than less. You have to put in a lot of effort because you're building a relationship.
Amen.
Once you've built it, it's going to have a different dynamic if you built it with those voices. So at first, couples get scared because they say, we've only been together for such a short time and we're already so. No, let's see. When you start a business, when you start anything in life, it requires more effort at the beginning. Yes. Why do they think that just because you get married and have a beautiful wedding and look great as a couple, everything is going to work out? Really? What a mistake. And so the problems should come at 30. No, at 30, you're going to be under the weight of everything.
Yeah. If you even make it to 30,
No, you have to start having them right after you get married. Yes, it's like a rehearsal. You shouldn't be afraid to build.
yeah. The thing here, and I would also say if we call it a skill, it's the ability to learn and apply it next time, because it's true.
Skill?
If you've already seen what hurts them, if they've already expressed themselves and empathized and everything, and you already know that button hurts them, and next time you press that button again and again, or you have another ugly fight. And then once things calm down, you come back. I mean, there are a lot of people who can talk like adults. Let's put it in quotes. After a period of a lot of stress and crying and fighting and pulling and all that. And okay, nobody taught us how to argue. But if you don't start learning to break that pattern with everything we're saying, which isn't rocket science, it's very simple. It becomes difficult because we never did it. So there's no progress. The relationship doesn't flourish. And on the contrary, it wears out a lot, really a lot. That's why you have to, okay, the first time you got to 100 in anger, let's call it that. But let's do the work so that next time it's 90, then 80. And when it's down to 20 or 30, it's not a problem anymore, right? What other skill can you think of that we could mention before we finish?
Well, what's important is to mention that they all become intertwined, if you notice.
Of course.
It's a system from, oh, Pepe, I'm already listening to the podcast. Palomita, I have this.
Right.
It's just that all of them. Empathy also has to do with being able to heal. Yes, or being able to repair. It's a bit harder, but I think it's key.
See.
It's about understanding that there are things you can solve and things you have to learn to live with. Because wanting to negotiate everything can get a little exhausting in a relationship. What do I mean? You're not going to change your partner's family of origin. You're not going to change where they come from. And you see, there's this idea that you marry the family. Oh. After 40 years as Traselta, I'm already demystifying her. I'm not so much anymore.
Okay.
I think you marry a person. And family can kind of be set aside. If going with your family causes me so much stress, it causes me so many problems. And what does your family want? To convert you and the grandchildren. And I can negotiate that out of 4 times. I go once. And we're all at peace. I can tell my partner, just like your parents weren't crazy about me, I'm not crazy about them either. But they're your parents, and we're not going to talk about it. We're not going to solve it. We're going to learn to live with it in a way that's more peaceful. I'm telling you because it's a skill that I see in us. Because when we confuse what's solvable with what's unsolvable, there are big problems.
Yes.
Couples get really stuck.
Know what?
They get stuck.
Ah, okay.
They get stuck. Why is that? No, there's no way to unstick it. These are things we're not going to change. So what am I getting at with this? That there's a part of a skill that I call creativity. We have to be creative even. to see what we do with what we're not going to change. And many partners don't dare to be creative because they think it's not appropriate or the right thing to do.
Okay.
How could I not go home? And what do you think? When do you dare to be creative and bring it up? I know a lot of couples who do it. And they've solved 50% of their conflicts. Just like that. Be creative. Dare to be creative in your relationship.
But there, for example, I would love for us to break down a little bit what is solvable and what is unsolvable, because as far as I understand, the solvable ones are common issues. Things like, for example, leaving the wet towel on the bed, or there are a lot of family gatherings, and I don't want to go to all of them, or things that are part of everyday life. But the couple, in a way, is fine. They get along well, they argue well, they make up, they're empathetic, everything we've already mentioned. But what happens when it's essential? I mean, which ones are solvable and which ones are unsolvable? Because what if it's a personality issue? No.
With the person, you have to find a way to admire them from another personal perspective. If you chose that person, you have to find a way to admire them from another angle. Let's use the example of time management. The value of money is very, very difficult to measure what is right and what is wrong. There are people who like certain things and who wouldn't spend on other things.
Mm.
And then when you start to judge, it becomes very complicated. You can't judge you, who are a watch collector. And if you can afford it, you buy whatever watch you want. You can afford a watch. I'm telling you about what I've seen in 40 years that it has ended in divorce. Just by confusing it. The value of money for each person. It's something very minimal. And I'm not talking. Let's suppose that you have the money for what you want. And you start judging. You have no choice. All you can do is respect. Because if you start, that's what you should do. And I'm going to do what I should. No. You should give it to foundations. You should do this. It's very hard to judge the burden you built up over time. A very punctual person, that for him, the value of time is, and the other one, many people will relate. And the other person, how about that? Everyone, 20 minutes, I'm half an hour late. And today, as I was coming here, I got caught in an accident. It can take away my peace. It can take everything from me that it happened to me. Because I come from a family and from grandparents with a story that time to my partner. It wouldn't take away 3 minutes from him.
But are you saying that's solvable or unsolvable? So you don't see it as something that can reach equilibrium? No.
It can reach equilibrium after a long time, but I'm not talking about the time it takes. I mean the value of what it means to arrive half an hour late. If the meaning of money, the meaning of your family of origin, not your own family, and you're going to get it. That's a very important issue that couples get confused about. How do I distinguish the issues when I see that something doesn't originate just from a business matter?
Mm.
When I see that it has to do with the value. Careful, be creative there. This is something important. I would call it the skill of creativity. Creativity. To get through the things we're not going to solve. And that they don't get in the way.
So if they are core aspects of who someone is, they won't be solvable because it's the essence of the person.
It's the essence.
And there, well, you'll have to see for yourself what you can handle and what you can't. And really, if they can communicate with these basics we're talking about.
Or let's be creative. And everyone, like the kids say, everyone has their own thing. Okay?
What happens when what's not solvable, even with creativity and whatever you want, is so essential that it's not really about that. Maybe it's not really about money or time. But I can't argue with you. I can't reach an agreement with you. I can't build that with you. I mean, why? Because maybe you get defensive, or because you don't empathize with everything we said, or you're not making any progress with it. How creative can you be? Or how much do you have to get to a point where you say, well, this is as far as we go?
Look, you have to try to seek help and take the right steps before saying this is as far as we go. Because many times, let's see, another one of the intermediate tools for what you're talking about is what I call a timeout.
Uh-huh.
When there's something you can't negotiate, more is not more. Less is more. My finger. You know what? Let's take a break. Let's take a break, take a breather, and we'll come back in a while. Or we'll come back tomorrow. Or we'll come back in a week. A timeout is very important
When things get out of hand.
when things get out of hand. And that's one answer to this. It's also a great skill.
Yes, it's a great tool we can give today. Ooh, the famous anxious and avoidant. Let's go. Think about the anxious attachment, which is wanting to solve everything right now and wanting to talk about everything right now. But since I'm not in my Zen, obviously I'm going to start suffocating you and you because of that same fear I have that I don't want there to be abandonment, for things to drift apart, for the bond to break. You're going to want to protect it by leaving, and you won't want conflict, so you'll leave. But I'm going to want to protect it by talking about it right now. So it's like a game of cat and mouse. And there, in my own experience, I've learned that because I really like to talk things out. But sometimes things escalate and you can't talk about it. But it is important, Julie, that we clarify how to set that time out in a responsible way so that the person who got anxious
Knows that you will come back to it.
exactly. So we don't lose that part of empathy and I see you and I care.
Nowadays, it's known that we need at least 20 minutes to slow down because it also has to do with your anxiety needs to reach that lower pace. So we know it's from 20 minutes to not next month. Let's say about a week. But what do I mean by the anxious one? There you can negotiate. Let's see, we're not able to reach an agreement. Let's give ourselves some space. And you need to make contact. Then how much time should pass? Because the anxious person needs some time. The avoidant person will still want to run away. So then maybe it's up to the anxious person to say, okay, I'll go along with it and we'll give ourselves this time. When we get back together, set the time. How about tomorrow at 6 p.m.? We go have a coffee and keep talking about this. Now we've set a time so the anxious person will feel better.
Of course.
Yes, it does need to have a set time. Yes, but it doesn't have to be immediate.
Yes. And as you say, everything is interconnected because if you mix in, for example, empathy. So the anxious person knows that if you care, you're putting in the effort. I know you care. We're just not getting it right now because of the pace and the tone, but I feel at ease. And so the anxious person reaches a certain balance by giving space, and the other person reaches balance by not running away from the problem, just by breathing.
And it's very important to know your strengths.
Yes.
Just talking and arguing more doesn't make it better. It's better to get back on track.
But there are times, and here I want to mention the part that hurts the relationship, when timeout is used as a weapon, as an escape.
No. That's why it can't be an escape. It has to include coming back. It can't be like, that's it. I'm not enjoying this anymore. When we actually talked about it. Because if not, it just becomes a taboo subject that never gets resolved, that never gets solved.
And what happens when the timeout is over and they come back again? And since they probably don't know how to communicate and there's no empathy, curiosity, admiration, or whatever you want to call it, they get upset again.
Look, timeout isn't a break. Timeout is a moment for everyone to reflect, to cool down, but to think about what happened and come back different. It's a responsibility.
Yes.
It's not a break where you stop thinking about everything. It's not just this and blah, 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 blah either. But it's like you carry that here, like in the back of your mind, like a little unresolved issue. And you go, you went for a walk, you went for a run, you went to eat, but in the car, you're arriving with a new idea.
Yes, I also want to emphasize that because many times we use that time out to overanalyze things and we even get more hooked and more worked up. And you say, go out for a walk or go talk with a friend or do something that relaxes your amygdala. That part of us, that's hijacked, saying fight or flight, which is exactly anxious avoidant. So we need to de-stress. and come back feeling refreshed again.
Now, let's also be real. Many times this happens when you have a crazy day with appointments and everything, and that's why you come back to talk or you leave it for tomorrow and you're not thinking about it so much, but you still have the responsibility. Maybe I'm saying you went for a walk and you all are running away. You're going to tell me, what if you couldn't go for a walk? And at that moment, no matter what you have to do, you carry that little unresolved issue with you so that at some point you can come back to it. That's your responsibility. And to be able to come up with a creative way to approach it differently. You don't end up with more of the same. It's like going back and saying, you know what? I've thought about it. Look at what I came up with. Oh, that's great because I thought of that too. And that's a real point of connection. And it's great.
It's more like coming back to the same thing. Okay? The way you put it, it's like they're two members of a team
Exactly.
in a joint project. It's not you against me.
Exactly. They gave each other some space to cool off, calm down a bit. But they come from a place.
Okay. Shuli, I know we could talk about a lot more skills, and for that, we'll keep making podcasts together. And well, there's also Shuli's social media. And obviously, stay here with us on Conquista tu Mundo. But before I wrap up, well, it's well known that we all enter dating, marriage, and relationships with zero preparation. And even more so in generations before this one, because we didn't have all these means, resources, or information, they just didn't exist. That's why I say in my next book, which comes out in June, don't get married without knowing this first, right? So you know what you're going to face, and above all, how you could face it better. But today I would ask you how to tell the difference when things are getting complicated in a relationship between a lack of love and a lack of tools. How can we know if there is really love and all we lack are tools, or if there really isn't love or there isn't core compatibility, no matter how many tools we use?
Well, I know this is the end, but we could do an episode about what love is. So, because I think the meaning of love is very important. I have had partners who have come with that reason to create conflict. It's just that I don't love myself anymore. And he raises his hand and says, can I say something? She says, I don't love myself anymore. And he says, just in case. I don't know what love is for her because let me tell you, she had cancer, and this is a real case, for 5 years. Every day at 5 in the morning. I never left her alone. For me, it's a way of showing her love through care. No, but for her, love is when I send her little hearts on WhatsApp, like all her friends do. That's a sign of love. So what I think is very important is to define what love means for each couple, because I don't think there's a single definition of love. I think that love is caring. Love is closeness. Love is empathy. Love is admiration. But how much do I really care? Yes, each of the groups. Because if I focused on love being that whenever I want to reach my partner, they would answer the phone. I wouldn't be with my partner anymore because of the cell phone. They don't care. I mean, that's really important. I think the definition of love is complex because it has to do with what love means to me. And I think that's something couples will have to ask. I wanted your definition of love. What would matter most to you? What would I have to be in the relationship for you to call it love?
Of course, for me, without a doubt, it's the emotional connection. With that, I feel super loved, which is a lot of what we've talked about and would also cover. I do agree a lot with the 5 love languages that Gary Chapman created. But no, I don't agree that you have to love the other person only in their language and they in yours, just because it seems like a very limited way of something as big as what we are. You should learn those 5 languages to give them, to receive them. Add 3 more. 3 that you consider, and your partner too. And give them and receive them fully, because that's love in its fullest expression. For me, it's hard. It's a lot. Yes. But I can't do it. And besides, it's so nice. I mean, you're growing in the relationship, and as a person, damn, I'm only going to feel loved when they send me little hearts, or I'm only going to feel loved when I have cancer. No, I mean, I want to feel it in the little things, in the big things, in everything.
Yes, I used it as an example to show how the definition of love is complex. But I mean, the question is whether people break up more because of love or because of problems, lack of love or lack of skills. I think that the lack of skills is what leads couples into a rut. That's where I think love goes out the window when I don't feel heard and I don't feel admired. I don't feel admired. Where's the love? But when you take care of the relationship, you develop these skills, which we'll talk about more at other times when you want to stay.
Of course, there's more love, and I really like this conclusion. Let's see if you agree with me here, philosophizing, that then love. It's confirmed that it's not just a feeling, it's a skill that you choose to develop.
That's the real need. That's the conclusion for me.
How nice that we reached that conclusion with this whole conversation. Well, then, my people, before I say goodbye to my beautiful guest, who is also my friend, and she's also given me some golden advice sometimes, and to Karen as well. I invite you all to join us for more of what we do here. So subscribe to the channel so you get all the other interviews. Give us a like. So the algorithm helps us reach more people and recommend us. And above all, go to the link I leave in the description, because there we have workshops, courses, my book will be there. We have weekly Zoom sessions. We do a lot of great things to keep going on this loving journey, so we can become better people and also better partners. And eventually, or if you already are, better parents. Julie, where can people who don't know you yet find you, which I think would be hard to believe?
You can find me on all my social media as Shulamit Grave and also on a podcast I have called Presignificando Ando. And that's it. Thank you. Beautiful page. I also have Mike Grave. I have all my courses to go for this.
Awesome. Well, once again, thank you so much. You're such a sweetheart. So we'll keep doing things. And thank you all for letting us into your hearts. Let's give a round of applause to today's guest. Thank you so much. Thank you, Shuli. Beautiful. We're done.